Hello and welcome back. It's puzzle time with Sudoku Sleuth, and now I've just spotted that I actually have an error in the title just as I bring it up. So today we're actually playing blindfolded chess, not blindfolded Sudoku, and once you understand that's the correct title, the thumbnail makes a lot more sense. So you got Sleuth here, I'm guessing in the qualifying rounds of a tournament, to be able to actually enter it. I don't think Sleuth is particularly good enough, certainly I'm not, to be in the tournament itself. And playing against an opponent that is clearly trying to show off here by playing with a blindfold, and I think quite a bit worse off for it. They can see that they are being taught a bit of a lesson about being arrogant, sweating, maybe even crying, according to the thumbnail, because potentially they're losing, given that they were showing off by playing against Sleuth with a blindfold. Don't do that. Now, if you haven't guessed this already, today's puzzle is all about chess lines. Now, this is a variant that I absolutely love, and I featured once, twice, three times, something like that before, from its constructor or original sort of creator, GDC. Given today's puzzle is a 2-star difficulty rated puzzle, I highly recommend you check out this playlist first, try some of the easier puzzles, just look at the solve time, and certainly go for the first one, which I'm pretty sure was the 1-star difficulty rated one first, to get familiar with the rule set before you try and give this particular puzzle a go. Anything else I want to say? As soon as I turn over, you're going to get a very obvious reference to why we're talking about blindfolded chess. So let me do that. Let's take you through the rules and reveal why it is named accordingly. So I've deliberately put the numpad because we're going to need this to explain the chess set puzzles, but also, the chess lines, but also for the solve itself. You can see it's covered in fog, hence the blindfold. So we got Blindfolded Chess by SamuPiano. We got the following set of rules. Normal Sudoku rules apply. That means place the digits 1 to 9 once each in every row, every column. Kind of my PCs are struggling a bit, okay. Every column and every 3x3 box. Really struggling to keep up here. Then we have the fog set. So the idea is that the grid is partially covered in fog. Entering correct digits will clear some of the fog in the grid. I mean, let's be more specific. It will clear the surrounding cells. So if this cell here was a 2, for example, not only will it reveal itself, it will also reveal all of the surrounding fogs. Quite helpful because essentially it's almost directing you to where you should be looking next, as well as a bit of a way of validating what you're actually playing. Next we have chess lines. So all grey lines have an image of a chess piece in the leftmost cell of the topmost row containing the line. So for example, this line here, in the top left highest row, you got the chess piece in here, which is a bishop. Now, adjacent digits along the line must be related on a standard 3x3 keypad by the standard move of this chess piece. So, if I bring the keypad up again and make it visible, essentially what that's saying is that adjacent digits on this line that you can see is disappearing off into the fog have to be valid bishop's move. So for example, if this cell here was a 2, the chess famously moves in diagonals, essentially either all white pieces or all black pieces. So that 2 could go to a 4 or could go to a 6, and you'd end up with a 4-6 pair as such. One more thing by saying standard movement of this chess piece, no castling, pawn capture, or double advance or promotion are permitted. So in other words, pawns may only move one space vertically at a time. 2, 5, 8, 5 could be a valid pawn line. So that's the chess lines. There's nothing in the rules that basically says, they're only like minor pieces. So we can expect to probably see bishops, pawns, knights, rooks, queens, kings. So there's quite a few rules that you're going to have to wrap your mind around. Let's remove this. We've got crop key, digits across a black dot must be in a 2:1 ratio. So, oh, hang on, sorry, excuse me, I skipped a line. Lines cannot branch or share cells. So we'll keep that in mind because obviously within fog, knowing where the line is and whether it's actually sharing something with another line, whatever it may be, would be very helpful. Then we have crop key dots. So digits across a black dot must be in a 2-to-1 ratio. So if this cell here was at a 2, this would have to be 1 or 4. So essentially one cell is double the other. Then we have XVs. Digits separated by an X must sum up to 10. I'm going to have to be a bit creative here and add my own X because it's covered in fog. So if these two cells have an X between them, they don't. Then this cell would have to be an 8 to make sure they add up to 10. No references to white crop key dots, no references to V's, so I don't have to explain those. What it does explicitly say is that not all dots or X's are given. So this 2, for example, having an 8 in here, and this is another 10 without an X, not a problem. And 8 having a 4 next to it and no black crop key dot, also not a problem. So that's all the rules we have for today. Only thing really left to say is if you want to join Sleuth in this blindfolded chess game, I would say first remove the blindfold, don't show off, and just be a good sport. And give this puzzle a go with a link in the description down below. And with that said, I'm going to restart the clock and see how I get on. Right, have I actually, did I even make, yeah, the numpad is back on. Right. So, the fact that it's explicitly saying lines cannot branch or share cells, I think is our first move. Because you can see, just, join these lines, because that's what essentially is disappearing off into the fog. Join this line, join this line, join this line. So this is all a bishop. And this is very helpful when it comes to bishops, because bishops have to be the same parity. It plays almost the same as actual chess, in that bishops are always either entirely even or entirely odd. You can't really move, if you're moving diagonally on the numpad, you're always going to stick to the same parity. Now, 5 in the same box gives us a parity. That has to be odd. And then the rest of it has to be even. Because already we've placed 5. If this is an odd digit on a black crop key dot, it can only be 1 and 3. And therefore its double would have to be 2 or 6. Bishop's lines are quite helpful as well in another way. If you look at the moves that it can do, essentially if you're on 7, actually let's pick 1 for a second. If you're a 1, you can only move to a 5 or a 9. What you cannot do is move to 7 or 3. They're not accessible via the diagonal. You have to stop off at the 5 before you jump off to 3 or 7. And obviously the same is true if you're a 3. You can go to 5 or 7, but you cannot go to 1 or 9. Immediately you have to stop off at the 5. So this is helpful because we've got 5 of them. And the only way this would work is essentially there is one diagonal, let's say the negative diagonal. Then you stop off at the 5 to access the positive diagonal. So this cell has to be a 5, first digit at 2 minutes. We can even remove some of these grey lines. Remove, not add new wrong ones. And now if this is a 1, you can see it has to be on the same diagonal. This would have to be 9. If it is a 3, this would have to be on the same diagonal. This would be a 7. And we're up and running. The bishop's line continues with at least 2 more cells. And this is again interesting because of the exact same reason. This is another diagonal. We know this is one diagonal. This is another diagonal. This has to be a 5. You're not going to be able to jump diagonals without the middle digit. That's the 5. That's another diagonal. So essentially another 1, 3, 7, 9, and then another 1, 3, 7, 9, and then 5 odd digits in row 1, and then a whole bunch of even digits. Now the puzzle is very clearly pointing us with the fog towards this knight move, or knight line I should say, chess knight line. Now the thing to think around chess knight is every time you move, you're actually shifting parities. So if you imagine that this cell here is a 2, the next valid chess knight moves are essentially, 2 steps down, 1 step to the side, so it could be 7. Or it could go 2 steps down and go 1 step to the right, it could be 9. But notice you end up with different parities. Now, let's just try this again. If this was 7, well, the 2 valid chess moves are 2 and 6. So these 2 cells would be 2, 6. Again, you're shifting parities. Now, in a game that's very much about parities, this is helpful. I don't know what parity it is, but I'm going to call this orange. I'm going to call these green. Then we're going to have to reason about what's going on in here. So what are my options? All right, I got it. Let me illustrate this with an example. So we said this is a diagonal. So let's say it's 1, 9. And let's pretend for a second that green is an odd digit. So the remaining diagonal is 3, 7. Now, because they're diagonally opposite from each other, whether it's 3, 7 or 1, 9, there isn't a chess knight move that is valid for both of them. Because the 9 can only see 2 and 4, the 1 can only see 6 and 8. Not the same even digits. The 3 can only see 4 and 8, the 7 can only see 2 and 6. Long way of saying if essentially green has to be even, this has to be odd. We have 4 evens now in row 3, so all of these have to be odd. That gives me another 1, 3 on the black Kropke dot with another 2, 6. Sorry, I need to remove my kind of made up references. 1, 3. So remember, this is a diagonal. So essentially, I have to have one of 1, 3 and then another of 7, 9. But what I've done is essentially I've used both 1, 3s. This has to be 7 or 9. 2 6s gives me 4 and 8. I don't know what these are. Well, I can probably think about what these are. So 7 can see 2 and 6 only. So that can't be a 7 because I need to be able to see 1 of 4 and 8. So this has to be a 9. That reveals more of the grid. We're on the right track. That is a 7. To be on the same diagonal, that has to be a 3. This has to be a 6. This has to be a 1. This has to be a 2. Then the other chess knight move that is not a 2 is a 4. This flips back to odd, and then from 4, not 9, it would have to be 3. And we're off and racing, really. 4 gives me an 8, gives me a 2, 4 pair, gives me a 1, 9 pair, gives me a 3, 7 pair. When you think about the 10s, we've done all the odd digits. This is clearly even. I mean, other than this fact it's blue. But essentially, I would have another 2, 4 in here with a 6, 8. So the remaining digit that is in here is another 6, 8. And I think we're being pointed towards this line next. Now, remember the language that I read out? Where was it? It's actually the top of it. Chess lines, all gray lines have an image of a chess piece in the leftmost cell of the topmost row. Now take a look at this line here. So far, we're not seeing the chess piece. And because it's in none of these cells, where is it? Now, the only way I think I can make this work is if this line does something like this, and in here is the chess piece. If I stop the line and get it to here, well, this is the topmost, leftmost cell, and I would have to see the chess piece. If I stop it in there, same rule applies. I have to go higher than this row, row 2, to essentially hide the chess piece from the line that is visible to us so far. And this is quite an interesting line, because you can see that there is 3 odd digits in quick succession with 5, 7, 9, and it's also not the same parity. I have evens and odds. It's a mixed one. Let me do some quick pencil marks. This is 6, 8. These are 1, 2, 4. There's a definite 1 in here because the other 2, 4, there's no 1s in there, and this is 2, 4, 6, 8. So let's think about what are the valid chess moves, and actually I'll bring the numpad back up a second. So essentially the 6 or 8. So we know that this is, what do we know? Because I'm changing parities, and it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cells, this is definitely not a bishop's line. It's also definitely not a knight line because I'm not changing parities every single move. So we're talking about something else. We also know that it is not a pawn. The pawn, if you remember, can only move vertically up and down, and because they're all in the same box, they all have to be different digits. And if they're all different digits, the pawn can only see 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 8, or 3, 6, 9. There's a maximum of 3 ever in the same row, column, or box for a pawn. So now I think we're left with rook, queen, and what was it again? King. Let's see if we can eliminate. I mean, I'm very sure it's king or queen, but let's think about rook for a second. I think rook doesn't work because of the 5, 7, 9, because you can see they're on different rows. So if imagine that this is a 5, how do I get to 7 or 9 without moving diagonally? So this has to be a king or queen. And then the 6 or 8 would have to go to 2 or 4, but not 1. Because the 1 is a chess knight move away from 6. The 8 is a chess knight move away from 1. This is not a 1. This is the 1, and it reveals a queen. That is even. No, this is odd. This is even. Then the 2, 4 has to go to, I mean, this is not a 5. If it's a 5 on an X, it has to be double 5, which it isn't. I mean, I could do that to show you. That is clearly not going to be the case. So to go from 4 to 7 or 9, again, the 9 is not valid. I have to be, I mean, the 2 can't reach 7 or 9. They're both chess knights move away. So that is definitely a 4. That is definitely a 7. That is definitely a 3 across from the 10. That is definitely a 6. And this is 2 or 8. This is not a 7. And we're now looking at this, what was it? Chess knights move. Which, I mean, it's almost like bifurcation, sort of showing the two solutions. So again, I don't know what the parities are, but I know they oscillate. So it's going purple, then green, then purple, then green, then purple. And then we have to think about, one option is purple is odd. One thing about a chess knight's move is it can never include a 5. The second you include a 5, which number can it move to that is a chess knight's move away? It's none of them. So essentially this would have to be, there's no 3 in here. This would be 1, well, 1, 7 or 9. It can't be a 5. We've covered that. And to join the 1 and 9, which are on the diagonals, the 7 would actually have to be in the middle. And then the chess knight moves that are valid from the 7 would be 2 and 6. So that looks, frankly, perfectly legitimate. So we're going to have to try and check if... I'm just going to copy it first so I don't have to derive it one more time. So the other possibility is this is even and this is odd. And it's not 1 or 3 or 5. So these two would have to be 7, 9. The 7, 9, the only valid even digit that can get to both of them is a 2. Then if it's a 7, so it would have to be 4 or 6, which it can't be. So essentially 2 would go to 7, the 7 would go to 6, the 2 would go to 9, the 9 would go to 4, so I'd end up with 4, 6 pair, and the 4, 6 pair cannot be in this cell. So this tells me that purple is odd. Green is even. This is definitely a 7. These are 2 6s, and this is 1 9. 1 9, I don't know what they are. The 2 6 gives me an 8, gives me a 2. These are now 4 5 8. In fact, that is not a 4. And the puzzle is now telling me to look at this pawn, which is not a 4 either. If that's a 4, this would have to be 1 or 7. It's the only 2 cells that are in the same column. Not a 4. If it's a 5, this would be 2, 5, or 8. I mean, if it's 5 or 8, it doesn't matter. It's 2, 5, or 8. And it's not 2, and it's not 8. This can only be a 5. This has to move, so it is an 8. This is a 5. This is a 4. Lovely. 5 gives me a 9, gives me a 5. Gives me 2 more cells in a column, 3 and 4. And again, we've got another line that clearly needs to sort of do something like this or this to figure out what this chess piece is. They're different parities. Not only are they different parities, they are a chess knight move apart parity. 3 and 4. So we're back to purple and green. Then this has to be a different parity. And in the column, I have another 1 9, a 6, and a 7. So 1 6. I mean, let's just think 1, 6, 9, 7, 9, not 8. 3 to 4 could go to 9. 4 to 3 would have to go to 8, which is not available. So this has to be 9. This is a 3, this is a 4, and we have more colors. Orange, blue, and then back to blue. 9 would have to go to 2 or 4, and it's not a 4, it's a 2. We'll come to that in a second. And 9 gives me a 1, gives me a 9, gives me a 6, 7 in the column, gives me 1, 2, and 8 in this column. Not a 2. Fantastic. Right, this line next. Or not this line. I mean, again, the fog is guiding you to this next. So we're talking about tens. Something about tens is that they always have, the two cells have to share the same parity to add up to an even digit. They're either both odds or they're both even. Now you can see it's not 1, 9. It's not 2, 8. And in fact, it's not 3, 7. This is 4, 6. And it is even. So we're going from 4 to 6 via something. And it's not a 5. So I'm not doing like, what would this be? This could be like a rook, king, or I've run out of words. It could be a rook, king, or queen. It has to be via kind of the corners with 2 or 8. And it's not a 2. That has to be an 8. And it's a king. So it's going 6, 8, 4, for example. That's even. In fact, I should continue with my coloring so I keep track of odds and evens. These are now all odd. That's quite helpful. Again, we can play this trick in here. It's not 2, 8. And it's not 1, 9. So it could be 3, 7 or 4, 6. This cell will probably help me eliminate something. Can I do anything else that's easy? No. Not really. I mean, 8, yes, yes I can. 6, 8 gives me 8, gives me 4, gives me 2, and gives me, oh dear, 6. That's not very helpful. The only thing that it's given me is that this is odd. Until I can resolve these. I can resolve them. 1, 7 has to be a 6 to be able to reach from both, and this is 2. This is not a 2. These are 6s. And that gives me another odd digit in here. And this cell is not 5 or 9. It's really not very helpful. 1, 3, 7. I don't know if I'm even going to bother writing this one. This is like a whole bunch of options. That wasn't fruitful. So let's think about this now. So the rook is quite interesting. And this 5 will help us. Here, I'll show you. Why would it help us? Right, so my options are 4, 6, 3, 7. It can't be 1, 9, and it can't be 2, 8. Now, same thing, same logic that we went through in here when we were trying to figure out what this cell is. And if it's a rook, let me do this with 4, 6. How can I have a valid rook move that would get me from 4 to 6 without stopping off at 5? And the answer is there isn't any, and that would break the puzzle. So this has to be 3, 7. And then this would have to go via the corners. So this would have to be 1 or 9. And I end up with a 1, 9 pair in the column, 3, 7 in here, another odd digit in there. Don't know what this is. What is this? I mean, depending on whether it's 3 or 7, it's basically anything, just not 5. Not exactly helpful. Whenever you get stuck, Sleuth, it's probably because you're not doing enough Sudoku. So let's think about Sudoku again. I did say this cell is not a 5, because you can't get to it with a rook move from 3 or 7, but you can get to everything else. So why is that significant? Yes, it is significant. Right. 5 is not in these two cells. 5 is not in here. 5 in row 9 is in one of these two cells. Let's play this forward. 5 is none of these. 5 is not here. And we just said 5 cannot be reached from 3 or 7. That's the only place for a 5 in box 7. That is a 5, and that gives us more. That gives us a line. I'm not even sure this is on the solve path. I mean, it hasn't... I was really expecting like a big reveal, like an X or a black crop dot or something to sort of help us along, and it gave us nothing. Okay. What am I looking for? Supposedly I have enough information here. You know, supposedly. Let me just think about this. More Sudoku, maybe? Maybe, actually. Here, 3, 7, 5, 1, 9. This has to be even. So maybe I'm just going to do a bit of coloring, actually. So essentially, in this column, I need another 1, 9 for the odds. Otherwise, it's even. I actually don't know what this is. 4, 6 means I have to have an 8. So there is an even and an odd in there. It's not as helpful. I need a 6, we know that. I need 2 and 4 with an odd digit. That is 1, 5. So it's 3, 7, or 9. 7 or 9. I mean, this could still be a 3, so it's not necessarily definitely even. Sorry, I need a second to think around. What is it telling me? To be fair, I'm not sure it's telling me anything. I haven't got a clue. Maybe I need to be looking at the parities in these rows. They're very nearly done. So for example, I've got 4 odd digits. So I need to have at least 2 even digits in here, which is at least a 6. So these two cells includes a 6. So this is not 2 or 6. Okay, so let's think about this for a second. What can it be? Can it be odd? It's not 3. It would have to be 1, 9, or 7 if it is odd. One, 9, or 7. I mean, to get from 3 or 7, it can't be 7, obviously. So it'd have to be another 1, 9, which it cannot be, because that would be a triple 1, 9. So this is not 1, 9. And it's not odd, it's even. And it's not 2 or the 6s. This is 4 or 8, which are both only achievable from the 7. As you can see on the numpad, you can't get to it from the 3. That's a chess knight's move away. So that is 7. Yeah, that's revealing more. That is 3. That is revealing more. That is a chess knight. That is a parity shift. This is even. This is odd. This is not 3 or 5. It's not 1 or 9. It is in fact fixed. It is a 7. That reveals more. That's a bishop. We'll come to that in a second. This is not 7 or 3. That's 1. We've almost removed the entirety of this fog. I need a 5 in one of 2 cells. That tells me, because I've got 1, 9, 7, and 3, and the 5 is not down here because of this 5, that tells me this is definitely even. I mean, it could be a bunch of options other than 6, obviously. The 7, both 4 and 8 are reachable. The 7, both 1 and 9 are reachable. This is... maybe it's got to be the bishop. So they have to be the same parity. So if it's odd, it's not 1, 3, 7, or 5. That would have to be 9. And because it's not 5, that is the negative diagonal. That would have to be a 1. Seemingly possible. Now, if it's even, well, 2, 6, and 8 is not this cell. That would be 4. And then it would be 2 or 8 in here. And it's not 8, it would have to be 2. And it's, again, not very helpful. It is helpful. The 8 removes an 8 from here. That's a 1-2 pair. That gives me a 9. That gives me a 1. That gives me another 9. Can't believe I still haven't resolved this early 2-4 or this 3-7. 7 in here gave me a 6, gives me a 7. That 6 gave me a 4, 4, 6. This is now known. This is a 3, which gives me a 7 and a 3. And this is, oh, there's a whole bunch of things. Colors. 3, 7, 5. This is 1 or 9. It is not a 1. It is a 9. And yeah, that is the entire grid now revealed. So we know everything. You know, other than solving, obviously, but, you know, we know where everything goes. Sorry, every now and again, I just have a real lapse of scanning. 1s, 5, 7. Surely I could do better. This odd digit now is not 7, not 1 or 3. Still 5 or 9, not resolved. Then I have another 6, 5, 9 in here. These two cells are known. They are 8 and 7, and that 7 can only be in here. That can only be an 8. I should actually do this one. This 7 can only be 2 or 6. Huh. Not very helpful. That is odd, even, odd, excuse me. 2, 4 with, so this is the full, 3. And the 3 is not here, and it's not a 2, that's just a 4, which gives me a 9, which gives me a 1, which gives me a 2, which removes a 2, and the 1 gave me an 8 and a 1. I think we've almost got it. We've almost got it. Sorry, I'm being pedantic about this because otherwise I am definitely going to make a mistake. This has to be the 6. This is another 5, 9, but it's not a 9. This is 5. This is 9. This is 2, 3. That is not the 3. That is a 2. That is a 3. I still haven't resolved the 2, 6, amazingly. Odds. This is not the 5. That is the 5. This is 2, 6, and 4, I'm going to say. And they're all even. This is odd. One of these is even, one of these is odd. It's 1 and something. That is not the 1. That's the 1. This is the odd, sorry, the even. That can only be an 8 because 2, 4, 6 are gone. That's 8. That's odd. Sorry, it's probably a bit dull watching me color. How is this still not resolved? 4 or 8, not 8. That's got to be 4. That's got to be 8. This has to be 2 or 6 because I've done all the odd digits. So this is 2 or 6. This is another even digit. This is even. That's all 4 done. That's odd, and it's got to be a 3. This is not a 6. We've already placed it. This is 2, 4. Yeah, of course. This was, dude, Sleuth. Come on. 4, 2, 2, 6, 4. That's a 6, and if I've not made any mistakes, that's a 2 for the finish. That's a phenomenal puzzle, SamuPiano. Absolutely phenomenal. Very tough in parts, I would say. Like, really tough in parts. If you're not paying attention to the rules, you know, for example, trying to determine that this is king or queen, knowing that this couldn't be a 5 and therefore this had to be an 8. The 3, 7, the same trick with the 9. I think if this did not include fog, I mean, incredibly, if this did not include fog, this would be a much harder puzzle because you just wouldn't know where to go. I mean, I think the bishop would have been the obvious place to start with so many digits. So you would have placed quite a bit of this. But then after that, I think the fog really narrowed down your search to just relevant information, thankfully. Anyhow, I hope that you guys enjoyed the puzzle and video. I really, really like this variant. And maybe I'll check out some more for another week. Hope to see you back for the next video. Bye-bye for now.